Hey guys, it's Rob here, and today we're going to be covering the history of Showbiz Pizza Place and Chuck E. Cheese in Lynchburg, Virginia. This area has only ever had one location, but that location has quite a bit to cover, with one interesting thing that happened, which we'll be getting into. Thanks to Colby Trimble 4734 for requesting this location. As usual, I've gathered information from multiple different sources, which I will be linking in the description. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, as in the next Chuck E. Cheese video, we'll be covering a location that has a one-of-a-kind trait that's been gaining traction recently. Anyways, let's get into the history of Showbiz Pizza Place and Chuck E. Cheese in Lynchburg, Virginia. Lynchburg was first settled in 1757 by John Lynch, of which the area was named after. Lynch started a ferry service at 17 in the area to carry traffic to and from New London, and Lynchburg was coined as the City of Seven Hills. The area was incorporated as a town in 1805, but didn't become incorporated as a city until 1852. As of the 2020 census, the population of the city is 79,009, making it the 11th most populous city in Virginia. The only location in Lynchburg is the 312 Border Street location, which opened in August of 1983 as a Showbiz Pizza Place. This was a franchised store under the franchisee Adventure Restaurant Corporation. If that sounds familiar, it's probably because they were also the franchisee of other locations, such as Charlotte's Pineville location. There's only a couple pictures of the location as a Showbiz Pizza Place, so there must not be much to talk about for this section, right? Wrong. Not only do we have a few videos to go through from the early 90s of this location, but we also have someone who talked about their memories of the location. While this can't be taken as concrete proof of what the location was like, it's still interesting to look at this and get a possible idea of what the location may have had. This person, who goes by Metal Misfit online, mentions this location being quite popular, stating that the place was utter chaos when you walked inside on a Saturday. He mentions games such as Double Dragon, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and even Hard Drivin' being at the location. What's interesting is that Hard Drivin' is a game that was developed in 1989, meaning this person probably was actively going to the location in the late 80s rather than earlier in its lifespan. Actually, I'm nearly certain this would have been the fact, since he mentions he could play some of these games on the NES, which was released in 1985 in the US. Metal Misfits also mentions all these games being at the location. I'm not gonna read all those off. This person mentions Uncle Clunk and Santa not being at this location, but also they were there in the late 80s when those characters would have been gone, so I'm not exactly sure that's confirmation that this location never received the Uncle Clunk package. He does mention the Chucky walkaround being at this location, but that was pretty standard after the merger, so I'm not surprised by this. Overall, reading this post by someone who went there as a kid was interesting, and not something I've done before on here. Let's get to the images now. Here we have an exterior photo, and although we can't see the whole building, it's cool seeing this photo on a red building, as that wasn't the norm for locations to do, to my knowledge. We also have this photo of Beach Bear and Mitzi, presumably from the mid to late 80s due to the lack of Beach Bear's blonde hair. A video from 1989 shows us the interior of this location, finally giving us a visual as to what everything looked like back then. Let's start with the showroom. Poor Billy Bob's having a hard time strumming his guitar there. We do see that this location got the Showbiz Pizza Campground upgrade, though, which is interesting. Seeing the rest of the stage, they seem in decent shape, though they look stiff. We get to see quite a few of the games they had at this point, though the quality is too low for me to tell what they are. We also get to see the ball pit, the rides, and the Billy Bob walk around, the typical one at the time. More footage from the same channel in 1990 shows off a lot of the store again. I don't want to repeat myself, since this was only a year later, so all I'm going to say about this footage is that the show looks to be in the same condition as it was the year prior. Everything else is the same as well. Beginning in 1989, due to a disagreement between Aaron Fechter and Showbiz Pizza Time Inc., concept unification occurred, in which every Showbiz Pizza place would convert their Rock-afire explosion ban into Munch's make-believe ban. Lynchburg would be one of the vast majority of locations to undergo this change, receiving it sometime between 1991 and 1992. We know it didn't occur in 1990 due to the fact that there's footage from January of 1991 showing the stage still being the Rock-afire explosion. We see footage from the same channel in 1993 showing off the store after it had received concept unification. At this point, their exterior was still Showbiz Pizza Place. That wasn't the only element that they kept of Showbiz, however. They still had their Billy Bob carousel around this time as well. Honestly, at this point, it seems like nothing about this store changed, aside from concept unification. Looking at the footage of the stage, it seems to be in somewhat poor condition. Characters like Pasquale seem to be not moving at all, and the other characters aren't moving around much as well. I don't think I've seen a 3 stage at this time being quite as poor of a condition as this one. This was in 1993 after all, so they were still maintaining the shows usually at this time. We get to see the Chucky walk around at this time, that being the one used in the late 80s. For some reason, he isn't wearing a derby hat. The final footage from this channel comes from 1994, and surprisingly, it does appear the store had a tech fixing it, as the characters are now moving a lot better now. They even still had the Billy Bob carousel at this point, though now the faces are painted brown, and the top of the carousel was removed, which was obviously done to rid themselves of the copyright Billy Bob brought. The Chucky walk around also changed this year, being the Tux and Derby walk around used during this time. We see the parody posters around this time as well, which are likely from when this location got concept unification. While that's it for footage at this location, I managed to get a hold of some pictures from a relative that shows off the location. Let's start with what seems to be the ones taken in 1994. This photo shows off a couple things, that being Chucky's photo ride and some sky tubes. Seeing as the relative I got this from said Lynchburg was the only location they went to, plus the fact that another relative also corroborated this, I believe that Lynchburg received the major 90s remodel around 1994. This remodel would have changed the exterior to Chuck E. Cheese's, which a relative told me was the case for a brief time, but also change up things like the entertainment package, which now included sky tubes, and new rides such as Chucky's photo ride. I can't confirm 100% that this is what happened, but the evidence to me feels strong enough to assume they did receive the major 90s remodel. Now we get to what I find the most interesting part about this location. At some point in 1995, this location would be turned into a place called Billy Joe's Ice Cream Parlor. This was one of two, maybe three, locations that existed, though this was the only one with an animatronic ban. Supposedly, creative engineering helped this location turn their 3 stage back into the Rock-afire explosion. What's interesting is that Cheesepedia says that this game area was removed in favor of an ice cream bar. While this may be true, there's a chance they still had an arcade area, which I say because a relative of mine, who has an incredible memory by the way, told me that even after being converted into an ice cream parlor, the arcade stayed. So whether that meant the gaming area was never removed, or if it was moved to another part of the store, I feel there's a good chance that they still had an arcade within the ice cream parlor, especially when someone with this good of memory is saying this. That being said, I can't confirm this fact, so all I can say is that there's a chance it stayed. This is where the other photos come in. These photos show a place that doesn't seem to be a Chuck E. Cheese's, which I say because this photo shows a Billy Bob walk around. No, these aren't taken from the Showbiz Pizza Place days. The person in these photos was not born yet by the time this location received concept unification. This is also not the walk around being used in the late to early 90s at this location, giving more proof that this was not during its Showbiz days. These are likely all pictures from the location as a Billy Joe's ice cream parlor, which would be a huge discovery if they are, seeing as this is the only photo we had previously found of this place as Billy Joe's, showing that the Rock-afire explosion stage kept some Chuck E. Cheese elements, such as the carpet and the color of Duke's base. We can compare this photo to this one, showing that the chairs look similar. Unfortunately, that's the only comparison point I can make, seeing as this photo doesn't show a whole lot outside this portion of the stage, and doesn't have a date to it. We mainly see rides in these photos, but we do also get to see a lot of arcade machines in these photos as well. There's no footage of this location during this time, so let's move on. In 2002, the animatronics would be removed from this location, being placed inside a barn. Billy Joe's would close 5 years later, becoming a spot for vandalization as the building sat there empty, not being turned into something new, nor being demolished. The building was purchased on June 23, 2011, and the Lynchburg Chamber of Commerce requested $3 million for redevelopment of the site. Although design plans were given to Commerce, those plans fell through. The building was sold to Woodspring on June 29, 2016, and the building was demolished in April of 2021 for a new hotel. Here's a few pictures I took of the hotel while I was up there a few days ago. As for the animatronics, they sat in that barn for 18 years, not being discovered until a team effort from Connor Lachinsky and Jack Turner, aka Animatronics Warehouse, was made, which resulted in them finding the entire band of animatronics. This video Connor Lachinsky uploaded on January 18th, 2020 shows the wear they endured over the years, with masks being quite dusty and some masks looking warped. According to Cheesepedia, someone was going to buy the Lynchburg Rock-afire explosion and do a new ice cream parlor idea, which is funny, though it was cancelled. I'm unsure if this was actually true, but it doesn't matter now. I was able to talk to both Connor and Jack to obtain correct info on the whereabouts of the animatronics, and from what they told me, Bats currently still belongs to Jack, while Connor owns Beach Bear and Duke, with Duke currently being sold to a private collector. As for the rest of the characters, Mitzi and Billy Bob were sold to private collectors. As for Rolf and Looney Bird, I don't know what happened to them. Apparently, the Looney Bird was never actually found in the barn, and Rolf supposedly went to Jack, though whether or not he was sold to a private collector is not something I currently know. The Sun and Moon are both owned by private collectors, with the Moon being owned by a YouTuber. Does anyone know who this Moon owner is? If you do, comment down below. In conclusion, Lynchburg is a fascinating case of a location breaking ties with Chuck E. Cheese in order to become its own thing, getting the Rock-afire explosion back once this happened. What's even cooler is that the animatronics are still around today, and hopefully will all be restored one day and perform again. Overall, Lynchburg was quite the cool place to cover, especially with having relatives who remembered the location and were able to provide me with photos of the location. Thank you guys for watching this video. This location was interesting to talk about simply because not only do I have relatives who went to this location, but also because the animatronics are still around today and will hopefully be restored one day. My next video will be recovering the history of Northridge, California, a location which has been gaining traction recently for one decision the location recently made. If you're interested in seeing that, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you're notified when that comes out. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.